friends, it's Christy. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be making a pop-up card using Lawn Fawn's A Creature Was Stirring, Baked with Love, and Elfie Selfie. I've stamped the images I'll be using with Lawn Fawn Jet Black ink on some Spectrum Noir Ultra Smooth Premium White cardstock. I'm going to be coloring with my Copic markers, and I'm going to start with my mice. I'm going to use E50 and E51 for a base coat on all three of them. I want them to look like they're all part of the same family, so they're all going to be very similar with just a few little differences. So I started with the E51 and laid in a little shadow on the back side of their bodies, and then blended that out with the E50 and let that fade to the white right around their noses, just to have that be a little bit different there. And then I'm going to bring in E53 and E55 and begin to add in some little details. So I'm starting with that E55 now. I'm going to give him a little brown ear and some spots down his body, on his hands. On this little girl, she's also going to get a little brown ear and some different little spots, just trying to give them each their own little personality. Just make them each a little bit unique, but still, very much matching. So once I have that E55 laid in on all of them, I'm going to come in with the E53 and soften up the edge of that so it kind of blends in with the rest of their fur tone. And then I'll just work my way back down to make sure that everything is nice and smooth. I'll grab that E51 and go over the edge of the E53. And then I'm going to go back to my E50 and add just a bit of that as well. Just a few quick touches to make sure that everything is nice and smooth. Then I'm going to go up and color my eggs with this combo as well. I wanted to have little brown eggs, so I'm going to shade one of them on the left and one on the right, starting with the E55. I'm blending out with the E53 and then filling in with the E51. I didn't bother with the E50 on those. Then I'm going to use R11 and R20 to color in the noses and the insides of the ears of my mice, and also to give them some rosy cheeks. Just real quick and easy with those two shades. I'll add R00 to that, and I'm going to color my KitchenAid mixer to be pink. I thought it would be fun to do that in kind of like a retro color. So I'm starting again with the R20 and kind of just breaking it up into sections and doing the shading there, adding a little shading above that band at the top part. I want that to be metallic, and also down at the bottom and along the back edge, and then blending out with the R11. So the highlight is going to be toward the right side of that. And then I'll use the R00 to fill in the rest of the area that I want to be pink. I also wanted the frosting on the cake to be pink, so I'm going to use these same colors. This one I am putting the shadow on the right hand side, so I'm just following those little scallops and making sure that that highlight is on the front top edge there. And then I'll do the frosting bag to match. I just figured it would be maybe like a clear frosting bag, so I decided to color it with the same. I just took away the R20 because I wanted it to be slightly lighter since it is in that plastic. I figured it wouldn't be quite so vibrant. But I needed a third shade, so I grabbed the R000 to finish that off and be the highlight. And then I also used that to color in the bellies of my two boy mice. For the metal parts of my KitchenAid, I wanted to go with warm grays. I chose W00, W1, and W3. So I'm just going to do that band across the top with those three shades. And then I'm also going to add a little shading to the flower, both the one in the bag and also the little pile off to the side, which could also be sugar if you wanted to. I just used the W1 and the W00 for that and let that fade into the white. I didn't add too much, I just wanted to have a slight bit of shading on there. And I did the metal tip of the frosting bag with those markers as well. The metal mixing bowl, I wanted that to be a shade darker and really look like, like stainless steel. So I grabbed W5 and added that to the warm grays I'd already been using. So I started by using that on both edges and kind of bringing that in toward the center. And then I'm blending out with the W3, and then I'll use the W1. And I saved just a sliver of space on the top part for that W00. I decided that I wanted that spoon to be metal as well, so I'm going to use those same shades. I just put my darkest, that W5, on the far left, and I'm blending toward the right. And I'll do the same for the whisk, but I'm just going to use the darkest 3 shades. And this one I'm just doing real quick and easy, just a little line of each of those 3 darkest colors on there. I used the W1 and W3 to color in the little chef's hat, and I let that fade into the white. And then I went back to the browns I'd used previously to do the rolling pin. I had thought about doing it in some different shades of brown, but really these are the perfect shades for the typical wooden rolling pin. So I went back to my E51, E53, and E55. I just put the darkest down at the bottom of both the base and the handles, and then blended toward the top with the E53 and the E51. Next, I'm going to add in like a pale aqua tone or a light blue. So I'm using B quadruple 0, B00, and B01. And I'm going to do the flower sack. I actually started with the B00 on the main part of that and then blended out with the B quadruple 0. I'm saving that B01 because I just want that to look really, really pale. And then I'm going to come in and do the little girl mouse's apron. And I started with the B01 for that, so you can see just a little bit brighter, and then blended out with the other 2 shades. And then for the candles, I'm going to use the B01. I'm just coloring them in solid because they're super skinny. And then I'll go back and do the band on the flower bag. And this time I'm starting with the B01. So it'll be just a touch darker, and then blending back toward the center with the B00. And I wanted a little bit more contrast on that band, so I first added a bit more of the B01, but decided that I really needed to bring in the B02, so I added a touch of that on the outside edges just to keep, a little extra contrast. And then I'm going to start with that for the cake stand. So I'm just following those scallops and then adding a little shading on the right hand side to match how I did the cake, and then blending out with the B01, and then I'll bring in the B00 to finish that up, just filling in all the rest of that white space. And I did go over the candles again with the B02. Next, I wanted to add in some yellow. I picked Y11, Y13, and Y15. I did the candles on top of the cake with the Y15, and then used all 3 shades for the bottom of the cake. I actually left a little bit of room for a 4th shade, the Y000. I knew I was going to need that for the butter anyway, so I just added that in for the cake as well. And then I use the darkest 3 shades for the pot holders on the little mouse's paws. And then for the butter, I'm going to skip the Y15 because that would be a little bit too bright, starting with the Y13 for my darkest, blending out with the Y11 and the Y000. And then I'll trim all of these images out with their matching dies. So I'm going to take the main die in the scalloped box card pop-up die set from Lawn Fawn and cut that out of some white wood grain cardstock. And then I trimmed off one of the longer pieces, just the top fold part of that. So normally you would leave that on, but I'm going to do a different kind of card today, so I needed that to be removed. And then I'm just going to reinforce all of those fold lines, and then I'll take some 1/4 inch score tape and add that to the fronts of the 2 side tabs. Then I will remove the tape on only one of them for now, so that I can join these 2 pieces together that are going to form the box. But before I close that up, I want to add my 3 inner tabs that are going to hold up all of my images. So I'm just peeling off the tape paper on one side and kind of spacing them evenly apart so that I have 3 little sections on the inside of the card. You could do more if you wanted to, but I thought 3 was going to be plenty for the images that I had here. Then I'm going to hold those tabs nice and straight in a line and peel off the rest of the release papers. This last one was giving me a little bit of trouble. I have really bad nails, so it's kind of tricky for me to get off some of these papers that are a little bit fiddly. But I also peeled off the paper for the other tab over on the left. And then I'm going to just fold that card in half, fold that tab on the left in, and smooth everything down into place. And that is going to form my little pop-up box card. So the next thing I'm doing is adding in some little pieces of pattern paper. I'm trying to create a little kitchen scene, and I wanted something for the backsplash. So I die cut these out of the Hello Sunshine Remix 6x6, and I'm going to fit one onto the back piece, and then the other 2 are going to decorate the 2 side flaps. So I could have cut off the 2 side flaps as well for the scene that I'm going to be creating, but I decided to leave them on just to have a little bit of extra room to add some more, the little images and stuff to kind of embellish the scene a little bit more. But you could also cut them off if you didn't want to do that. So then I'm going to take another piece of black licorice cardstock and add that to the back because that's going to be my countertop. And then I'm just folding everything back up to make sure that everything is working properly and that it's still going to fit into a standard size envelope. Then I'm going to take 2 more of those pieces. They're meant to go on the sides, but I'm going to turn them the opposite direction and use them to make cupboards on the front of my cabinet. So I just added some liquid glue on the backs of those, and then I'm just lining those up nice and straight and making sure I have just the tiniest sliver of space in between so that they look like they can open and close. Then I'm going to take the little doorknob from Acorn House. I die cut that out of some more black licorice cardstock, and I'm going to add those to the fronts of my cabinets to be the doorknobs. So I tried using my embellishment wand to set those down into the place that I wanted them, but the paper didn't stick that well, so I grabbed my pokey tool there and tried using that. It was a little bit fiddly to try to get these on there until I realized that I should probably be using my reverse tweezers. I just don't think to use them very often, but they definitely come in handy when I pull them out. And that helped me get that on there much easier. So I'm just going to make sure that those are on there nice and even. Then I'll take another strip of that black licorice cardstock, and I'm going to add that on the front to be my countertop again, just kind of finishing off that top edge there, making it look a little bit nicer. And then I took the other two shorter strips and I added those to the sides under the flaps. So now I'm ready to start adding in my images, and I was thinking I was going to use some glue dots. It's a little bit quicker than liquid glue because everything adheres instantly. So I use that for my KitchenAid to put that on the back of the countertop there. But for some of the images, even the mini glue dots that I was using were a little bit big, so I'm going to switch back and forth. You can see me trying to roll them down on the edge of the cake so it will fit behind the cake stand, because you don't want any glue to be exposed on any of your images, or when you fold your card up, it's not going to pop back open again. So you have to be really careful that your adhesive is only where those images are adhered and nowhere else. So the cake is going to go front and center on the front section of those little tabs in the middle. And then the girl mouse, I wanted her to be decorating the cake. I had to put a little slit in between her hand and her face so that I could tuck that pastry bag right into her hand there. So I just used some more glue. I'm using liquid glue this time, just a tiny touch of it because I knew the glue dots would be way too big, and it's securing that in her arm so it looks like she's holding it. And then I will add her so that the frosting bag is placed right on the cake so it looks like she's right in the middle of frosting it. And because there was so little space again to adhere her, I added the liquid glue. I used my Barely Art Precision Craft Glue because it has that super fine tip. And then I used my reverse tweezers to hold that into place until it was dry. I found that method to work fairly well, so I used that again for the boy little chef mouse with his whisk. The third little mouse, I wanted him to be back near the KitchenAid mixer, so I'm going to use my glue dots once again, so he will be completely adhered to the back of that. So I just placed him where you can kind of see him, in between the other images. And then I'm going to decorate up the sides. So the rolling pin, I'm going to add to one of these flaps. And I use glue dots again for that. I kind of just went back and forth between the two glues depending, then I used the liquid glue again for the butter because I needed to tuck it behind, and that's a little bit tricky to do with the glue dots. And then this little pile of flour, I'm going to turn it into sugar, or it can be whatever, but I'm going to put it, separate from the bag of flour over in front of that rolling pin on that flap. And then on the other flap, I'm going to take that bag of flour, add that over there, and then I'll have the 2 eggs. So I'm going to have one kind of on its side a bit, and then the other one laying down a bit more, just to turn them in different directions. And then I have that little spoon that's going to go in front of them. I use liquid glue on all of those. So either one of them I think works. It's just whatever, you're reaching for in the moment. So all I needed was a sentiment to finish up this card. I took Wish Big from Critters in the Past because it was super small, and heat embossed that onto some more black licorice cardstock, die cut that with an everyday sentiment banner, and adhered that to the top right. And that is going to complete my card for today. If you enjoyed it, please be sure to hit that like button and subscribe. Ring that notification bell so you don't miss any future videos. I post new ones every Monday and Friday. If you're interested in the products I use, you'll find them listed and linked in the description bar below. If you'd like to keep watching, here are 2 extra videos I thought you might also enjoy. I want to thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you all have an absolutely amazing day. Bye-bye.